Welcome to Chapter 4, Climate and Biomes. This is Segment 4, and this is Miss Thewison. And in this video, I will go over aquatic ecosystems. There are significant amounts of vocabulary you need to know, so please spend some time learning the terms. Within the aquatic environment, we categorize or describe organisms based on their lifestyles. Plankton are organisms that float and have extremely limited swimming ability. There are two types of plankton, phytoplankton and zooplankton. Phytoplankton are producers and found in the euphotic zone. The euphotic zone is the uppermost portion of the water column, which has enough light to support photosynthesis, while zooplankton is animal plankton or heterotrophs and usually eat the phytoplankton. Nekton are organisms that swim, like tuna and whales. Benthic organisms are organisms that live on the bottom, like snails, coral, and crabs. Benthic organisms can be non-modal, called sessile, or moving, called modal. The aquatic environment, just like the terrestrial environment, has limiting factors. Phosphorus is a primary limiting nutrient in water, but there are other factors such as dissolved oxygen levels, temperature, depth, turbidity, and that also affect population growth and photosynthesis rates. Dissolved oxygen is necessary for cellular respiration, so low levels of dissolved oxygen, also known as DO, will lead to reduction in the number of species in the area, because many species cannot tolerate or survive in low dissolved oxygen conditions. Low DO levels can also be an indicator of water pollution. Depth affects light intensity as well as temperature. As depth increases, sunlight is unable to penetrate the water and the light intensity quickly decreases. Also, water temperature typically decreases with depth. Turbidity also affects light intensity. Turbidity, I can't talk today, is the measure of cloudiness or how clear the water is. High turbidity means you cannot see through the water. This cloudiness decreases sunlight's ability to penetrate the water column and will decrease light intensity. If water is crystal clear, it has low turbidity. Freshwater ecosystems are also categorized as either flowing water, such as rivers and streams, or standing like lakes and ponds. Flowing water usually has fewer plants and are therefore low in primary productivity. For this reason, the primary source of energy for the food web in rivers and streams is runoff from the surrounding land, such as erosion of soil and leaf litter. Flowing water typically has higher dissolved oxygen levels and supports a larger variety of species, while slower standing water often has low dissolved oxygen levels and will only support species who can survive such conditions, like catfish. Nice little picture of a running stream, and you can see all those deciduous trees about to drop their leaves in that water. Okay. Standing freshwater, like lakes and ponds, usually have a significant amount of plant material and algae. Lakes and ponds can be divided up into different zones. The littoral zone is the shallow water edge of the lake. This is where emergent plants are found. Emergent plants are those that are rooted to the bottom of the lake, but extend to or beyond the surface of the lake. The littoral zone extends out from the shore to the depth at which sunlight is still acceptable for plant growth, because newly germinated plants on the lake's bottom will need this light to grow to the surface of the lake. The limnetic zone is the light, open water zone that occurs past the littoral zone. It is too deep for plant growth, and the limnetic zone extends to the depth to which the light can penetrate. That's not right. Yes, that's right. By the way, limnetic is the study of freshwater. Limnology, sorry. Below the limnetic zone is the profundal zone. This zone receives no sunlight and has low dissolved oxygen levels because there are no plants to produce oxygen. The entire bottom of the lake is the benthic zone. Looking at this diagram, you can identify the littoral zone and the emergent plants, along with the limnetic zone, profundal zone, and benthic zone. Another freshwater environment that is very important as freshwater are freshwater wetlands. An area is considered a wetland if it is submerged or saturated with water for a portion of the year. Florida has a lot of wetlands. Wetlands are important because they are very high in productivity and provide numerous environmental services, including holding large amounts of water, which reduces flooding. The wetlands are also filter out water pollution, such as phosphorus. Wetlands are also important for groundwater recharge and provide an important habitat for birds and aquatic organisms for breeding and function as nursery areas for young organisms. The number of freshwater wetlands has been greatly reduced due to human activity. Wetlands are drained for agriculture and development. They are also used for hunting and often used for growing crops that grow in wet conditions like rice, cranberries, and blueberries. There are 4 types of freshwater wetlands: swamps, which have emergent trees like cypress swamps; marshes, which have vegetation like sedges, which are very thick, tall, grassy kind of substance. They're a little tougher than a normal grass; and cattails. Bogs, which occur due to rain and are acidic. Bogs often are associated with moss and are often called peat bogs. Lastly, there are fens. Fens are groundwater-fed marshes. The picture on the left is a swamp. The picture in the upper right is a marsh, and the bottom picture is a fen.
So do you know what makes something a wetland? Well, by definition, a wetland is any area saturated in water long enough, like this, to support a majority of plants with special adaptations to being saturated in water.
Okay, let's start by looking at the different types of wetlands. Generally, they fall into 4 categories: marshes, swamps, bogs, and fens. And here's just a few we've explored.
Do you have one of these near you? Depending where you live, you might have lots of them. With this US map, we can add a darker color to wetlands, and you can see that there are lots and lots of wetlands in areas like the Southeast, the Mississippi River Delta, and in the far north, like in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Once you've found your wetland, you should know that there are lots of different types of plants. Let's put them into categories. Some plants are emergent, meaning they grow mostly out of the water, and some are floating, in which their primary photosynthesizing leaves float on the surface. And some are submerged, floating just below the surface. This is kind of cool because we got all 3 varieties here. We've got emergent plants, we've got submergent plants, and we have floating plants all in the same place.
And we know that to some, a wetland might look like a wasteland, but they're extremely important. In fact, they harbor tremendous benefits for the ecosystem and us. They clean the water by filtering runoff before it enters large bodies of water. They help protect areas from floods. They also keep shorelines from eroding, which keeps sediment loads in the water to a minimum. All kinds of fish and wildlife depend on these systems too. So one of the cool animals here in the wetland is the red-winged blackbird. And the males are here setting up their territories and trying to defend them to get the best mates. It's really neat. Finally, I think we need these wetlands for their aesthetic value, whether it's for artists, biologists, filmmakers like myself, or simply to take a hike around them.
All right, before we go, we want to encourage you to do something to help the wetlands in your area. You can go to untamedScience.com to learn more. And as always, never stop exploring your world.
Now we are going to move on to marine ecosystems. Marine means that the water is salty. Most organisms in the ocean are found in coastal waters and in the euphotic zone, which is the uppermost portion of the ocean that has enough light for photosynthesis. Estuaries are an extremely important marine environment. Estuaries have non-woody emergent plants and occur where fresh water enters the ocean. The mixing of fresh and salt water in the estuaries makes the water brackish, which means it is less salty than the ocean. Estuaries have very high productivity and provide many environmental services. Estuaries stabilize the shoreline, reduce the flooding of storm surge, filter pollution from the water, and provide a valuable nursery area to many species which are important to our fisheries. Because rivers dump water into estuaries, it is common for estuaries to have high levels of pollution. Benefits of estuaries are filtering pollution from the water, protecting coastlines, including against storm surges, and providing valuable nursery areas for fishery species. How humans have impacted estuaries is through high levels of recreation, commercial fishing in the estuaries, and using the estuary for aquaculture, which can cause excess nutrients from waste.
When you mix the fresh water of the river with the salt water of the sea, something wonderful happens. As if by magic, a life-supporting habitat is created for hundreds of species of fish, birds, and mammals. It's called an estuary. This protected body of water, often partially enclosed by reefs, barrier islands, or fingers of land, is distinct from all other places on Earth. In fact, it's irreplaceable. For you see, estuaries are the most productive ecosystems on Earth, containing more life per square inch than the richest farmland or deepest forest. There are over 100 estuaries in the United States which are home to tens of thousands of fish, birds, mammals, unique plant communities, and over 110 million people. 70% of the entire United States population visits an estuary every year. People and wildlife love estuaries for their many beautiful and diverse habitats, including sandy beaches, fresh and saltwater marshes, rocky shores, shellfish beds, mangrove forests, river deltas, seagrass meadows, and wooded swamps. These special places are the most popular on Earth, yet not many of their inhabitants or visitors even know what they're called. Many of us, in fact, boat, swim, surf, and fish in an estuary without even knowing it's an estuary. Estuaries lead the world in life support, critically serving as places to live, eat, and reproduce for tens of thousands of birds, fish, and mammals. They are ideal spots for migratory birds to drop in and enjoy some R&R, and act as five-star hotels for fish and mammals. Estuaries are known as the nurseries of the sea, as their sheltered waters are perfect for spawning. Thousands of marine animals depend on estuaries at some point in their life. They are truly the real Magic Kingdom. Estuaries also house unique plant communities. Salt marsh grasses and other estuarine plants help to prevent pollution, erosion, floods, and stabilize our shoreline. Wow, all that and beautiful too. In addition to creating a food web for the multitudes of fish, birds, and mammals, estuaries also provide habitat for 75% of America's commercial fish catch and 80 to 90% of the recreational fish catch for our human dining pleasure.
Another important marine environment are mangrove swamps. Mangrove swamps occur along tropical and subtropical coasts. Unlike estuaries, mangrove swamps have no freshwater input. Yet the benefits are similar to those of estuaries. Mangrove swamps protect coastlines from erosion and storm surge and provide important habitat for birds and fish, as well as very valuable nursery areas for fishery species. However, humans have impacted mangrove swamps. Humans have cut down mangroves for lumber and charcoal, converted mangrove swamps into aquaculture areas, and destruction of the mangrove swamps due to urbanization and coastal development. Nice picture of a mangrove swamp. Barrier islands are islands of sand. They protect inland coastal areas from storm surge. They are also very important for sea turtle nesting. Unfortunately, barrier islands also have nice beach areas, so they are usually highly impacted by coastal development of hotels and resorts as well as homes. Development of the barrier islands has had a severe negative impact on sea turtle nests and decreased their overall population size. Coral reefs are an important marine ecosystem due to their extremely high biodiversity. Coral reefs occur in areas with warm, shallow water. Unfortunately, coral reefs have also been affected by human activity, including pollutants, sediments from inland, coral and tropical fish harvesting, and coral reefs. Nice picture of a coral reef. The open ocean is divided into different zones, like lakes are. The areas of the shoreline between high tide and low tide is referred to as the intertidal area. If you have ever gone to the beach and had to move your towel so that it didn't get wet, your towel was in the intertidal zone. The shallow coastal area of the ocean is the neritic zone. Most life in the ocean occurs in the neritic zone. Beyond the neritic zone is the oceanic zone. The oceanic zone is divided vertically into the photic zone, which is lit by sunlight, and the aphotic zone, which does not receive sunlight and is therefore dark. The uppermost portion of the photic zone is called the euphotic zone, which means that it has enough light to allow for photosynthesis. And the bottom of the ocean is the benthic zone. This diagram shows you the general location of the different zones. So you can see there the beachy areas referred to as the intertidal, between high tide and low tide. The neritic is the little area off the continental shelf in the shallower area. Then you go out to the oceanic, top of the oceanic being the photic zone, the bottom being the aphotic zone, and then of course all of the bottom of the ocean is the benthic zone. The last zone we're going to talk about is the intertidal zone. It is a very narrow band at the coastline and is highly affected by wave action because it occurs between the high tide and low tide line. This is a picture of a tidal pool. Tidal pools occur within the intertidal zone. The organisms must be able to deal with wave action as well as potentially being out of water for an extended amount of time. This wraps up Chapter 4, Segment 4. If you have any questions about any of the content in this video or the chapter, please let me know so that I can go over it in class. Good evening.